Where do tropical diseases occur? The tropics. What are the tropics? The tropics lie between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn in the southern hemisphere, as you'll see by these lines. And I totally stole this picture and I don't know where it came from, but it was the best picture I could find. Anyway, oh, I don't have a laser pointer. Could I possibly have someone run me a laser pointer down while I'm talking? Okay, cool, thank you. So basically in 2009, some climatologists discovered that the tropics were expanding. So normally the tropics are between the 23.5 degrees north latitude line and the 23.5 degrees south latitude line. All right, let's see if this works here. Is it powerful enough? Yes, okay. So here is, oh, that's my left hand, hold on. Okay. Shoot. I'm gonna have to set my note cards down and hope I can remember everything. All right, so there's Texas right there, and we are right above the Tropic of Cancer. We're located about 25.8 degrees north and 36.5 degrees north. So we are a big state, we are a tall state. We have 10 degrees latitude there. And so far, the tropics have already expanded 0.6 degrees north and 0.6 degrees south, up to around 24 degrees. And they're expected to expand another 2.5 degrees north and 2.5 degrees south, which is bad for Texas. What are the tropics like? The tropics are hot and they are wet. As they expand, they also are pushing the arid desert regions that are outside of them up also. Anyway, key point, tropics are expanding. This is bad for disease.
What's the time frame on those 2 degrees?
So they think it's expanded 0.6 degrees in the last 25 years. And then I guess in the next 25 years it could be up to 2.5 degrees. I need to look at that again actually. Anyway, what is the most famous tropical disease that you can think of?
Malaria.
Very good. How many of you out there knew that malaria once was endemic throughout the United States? That's pretty good. I didn't know that until I started studying infectious diseases. Maybe my mom remembers, because she was born in 1949. I shouldn't tell her that. Anyway, that's right before the time it was basically eradicated from the United States. So in the 16th and 17th century, we had European colonists that brought over malaria and the slave trade that brought over malaria. And we had a couple of different mosquitoes that could actually transmit the parasite. The word we use for insects that transmit parasites is vector. The vectors of malaria are Culex species, or not Culex, sorry, I got that mixed up with another slide, Anopheles species of mosquitoes. And they look like this, they're brown. And this is what the parasite looks like when it infects your red blood cells. Malaria is horrible because it first infects your liver after a mosquito feeds upon you and injects the malaria parasite. And then it goes into your liver cells, it bursts them open, it goes into your bloodstream, and it infects your red blood cells, and then it bursts open your red blood cells. And that's why you get these waves of like fever and chills and whatnot. Every time you get this wave of the disease, it's because it's just busted open your blood cells. And it can lead to anemia and death. And there's a couple of different species. We don't really have one of the worst species, or we didn't really have one of the worst species occurring here so much. Anyway, let's see, next slide. Oh, the symptoms of malaria, here we go. Headache, fever, fatigue pain, chill sweating, spleen enlargement, nausea, vomiting. Pay attention to these symptoms. A lot of the tropical diseases I'm going to talk about tonight all share these terrible symptoms. Oh, and here's a cool map from the Library of Congress in 1870. This is a map from 1870 that shows malaria mortality across the United States at the time. Look at this area that looks like Houston. These dark colors show the number of deaths per 10,000 people. This dark red refers to a death rate of 1,400 per 10,000. That's about 1 in 7 people dying from malaria. Could you go? And so it was pretty bad. Generally, it was worse to go to war because you would die from a disease than die from a wartime injury, okay? Yeah, that's that. Okay, so the other cool thing you'll notice about that map is that the distribution of malaria really matches up with this particular mosquito species, Anopheles quadrimaculatus. They also have Anopheles freeborni and some other name I can't remember that's purple. And then if we go to the next map, oh, I forgot I put this in here. Basically, the first mosquito control stuff was started when we were working on the Panama Canal around the turn of the 20th century to combat yellow fever and also malaria. And then the military started putting together disease control efforts, and they started draining like marshes and improving housing of the troops and making them use bed nets. And so in the South, when they were training the troops, they realized these things were really important to keep troops from dying. And basically that military effort turned into the CDC in 1947. And they considered malaria eradicated in 1951. Well, these are recent cases of malaria in the United States from 1957 to somewhere in the 1990s, 1994, from a paper by Zucker in 1996. If you'll notice here, we had some cases in Houston. A couple of homeless people got malaria, and it was thought to be autochthonous, meaning transmitted endemically. They didn't travel outside of Houston, they got it in Houston from mosquitoes. And you'll see that these patterns of malaria, contraction, where you catch it? I've had a few drinks, I'm a little nervous. They match up with the vector species of the mosquitoes. You can't get the vector-borne disease without the vector being there. And there have been like 70-something cases since 1957, 76 cases since 1957, where people caught malaria in the United States. Last year, we had about 1,600 cases of malaria in the United States. Only 2 of those were cryptic or introduced. Cryptic meaning they have no idea where it came from, probably picked up in the United States. Introduced meaning a foreigner brought it in, a mosquito bit that foreigner, and then transmitted around in the United States. Okay, now we're done with malaria. Malaria is not endemic in the United States anymore. Let's talk about another mosquito-transmitted disease. Dengue, not dengue, dengue. Now this is caused by a virus as opposed to a eukaryotic parasite, which is the case for malaria. And I also apologize, this talk is not as much fun as the other talks. And it's only going to get worse, so prepare yourselves for worse and unhappiness, which will help the bartenders when you drink more. So it's spread by Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus mosquitoes. These mosquitoes look different than the Anopheles mosquitoes. They're black and white. They have crazy little bands. Aedes aegypti has a harp on its thorax. That's how you can tell the difference. This thing was actually introduced from Asia into Houston by tires, and then it spread throughout the United States. And the cool thing, well, not the cool thing, I think it's cool because I study diseases. Dengue is more or less endemic to Mexico. And so we see it in border counties on Texas regularly. It pops up all the time, although it hasn't really moved further north since then. We also see it in Florida, the Bahamas, and also Hawaii. There was a recent outbreak in the Bahamas this year already. So maybe we'll see it move up north. And it's also characterized by fever, muscle and joint pains, and in this case, rash. I don't think malaria is often distinguished by rash. So if you ever get a fever, a rash, and lots of pain, and you've been bitten by something, you have a bad disease. And you should go to the doctors. All right, let's talk about West Nile virus. Who has heard of West Nile virus? Everyone, big deal, okay? West Nile virus was introduced to New York City in 1999. They think on an Israeli jet in the compartment where the wheels are stored on the airplane. It came into New York in 1999. It's spread by Culex mosquitoes, and all sorts of animals can be hosts. Birds, horses, other mammals, humans. It's really bad for horses. It kills a lot of horses. And you can see how within 2 years, it spread all the way down to Florida. So it spread like throughout the United States east of the Mississippi. Another year, it spread way past the Mississippi. And in 5 years since its introduction in New York City, it made it across the entire United States. It went down into Mexico. It's gone down into Latin America, South America. And another key word I want to introduce to you from epidemiology is the word reservoir. So when you think of a reservoir, what do you think of? Water storage. Okay, this is a place where you can get water from. Well, for parasites, it's like parasite storage, parasite amplification. So these birds are like great sources of parasites for the rest of us. So we have vectors that move the parasite around and reservoirs that store and amplify it. Okay, and then here's just a gross picture of culex laying eggs. Okay, oh wait. Oh. And then another picture of K. fasciatus. You'll see it's kind of brown and has little white stripes. Basically, you should kill any mosquito that lands on you. I was gonna say you should use this to be like, oh look, that's Culex fasciatus, or maybe that's Aedes aegypti, but they both carry bad stuff. And actually, like 12,000 people have gotten the encephalitis or meningitis form of West Nile virus since it was introduced. And this is according to 2010 statistics. And 1,100 of those people have died from it. So it's basically like, if you get the severe form of the disease, 1 in 12, you die. Anyway, okay, now I'm going to talk about my disease that I study. I study cutaneous leishmaniasis. You may have heard of leishmaniasis due to Operation Desert Storm or the recent wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, because soldiers go over there and they get it sometimes. Just like malaria, it's another protozoan pathogen, this time not a virus like West Nile and dengue, that's spread by biting sandflies. And here it is actually invading a macrophage. A macrophage is a white blood cell that defends your immune system, or your whole body. Dengue does the same thing actually. A lot of these parasites that invade your immune cells are just really bad for your body, obviously, right? And these things are crazy because they have a little whip-like flagella. I think that's all I was saying on that slide. Oh, here we go. So I told you there would be I told you there would be a disgusting image. No, go for it. Leave it on there. Everyone take it in. Close your eyes if you need to. I guess this doesn't bother me as much. I gave a presentation about leishmaniasis while people were eating lasagna one time. It was terrible. Okay, so this dude's got cutaneous leishmaniasis on his hand. There is a cure for it. This stuff won't kill you. It's just nasty and it takes a long time to heal. Although actually this kind will kill you if it gets secondarily infected. This is the mucocutaneous forms. There's also forms that infect your organs called visceral leishmaniasis or Kala-Azar. They stand for black skin. That means you're going to die. And then this is a cat that was infected in Texas, and here's little gross nodules on its ears. So here's the cool thing. Next slide. Where in Texas is leishmaniasis? It's been spreading in Texas. So from 1900 to 1979, we just saw it in South Texas, okay? This is like 1900, 1942, 1970, 1972. And this background actually represents modeling I've done of the vectors and the reservoirs of the parasite based on averaged environmental variables from 1960 to 2000. The reservoir is a wood rat, okay? It's a rodent. Anyway, next slide. We see it sort of following this good habitat for the wood rat and the sandflies. Next slide. It's really growing in the region, it's circulating. Next slide. Boom, it jumps up north. Don't know how it got there. Next part. Still circulating down here. Now here's the exciting part. It moves east a little bit to 2004. Boom, 2005 through 2009. It spread all the way into Oklahoma. So within a period of like 15 years, it spread like 600 kilometers.
It's following I-35.
Watch out. And so I've done some other modeling that show sort of like the central region of Texas to be very poor habitat for the vectors and the reservoirs of the parasite. And I think that climate change has actually made the habitat much more suitable for the parasite. But that's research to come. And then I think I have one more. Yeah, and then you see even more popping up. And I actually just got an email from Texas Department of State Health Services today saying there was another case in the Dallas area. So it's around and it's gross.
What's the vector?
Sandflies. not mosquitoes. Okay, and then Chagas disease. Who has heard about Chagas disease? It's been in the news recently, mainly because I was in a lab where we worked on this parasite and we tried to get the legislature to make it a reportable disease, but they didn't want to. This is also caused by a protozoan parasite that has a flagella. Here's a picture of it in your bloodstream. There's its little tail. And it infects muscle tissue. Well, it infects like all the tissue in your body basically, but it likes to, I guess, live in muscle tissue, and it can cause scarification and enlargement of organs. So here's someone with an enlarged heart because of the parasite. It can also cause megacolon, which is a large colon, mega esophagus, which is very large esophagus. I don't have those pictures up. And that's the chronic phase when you've had it for a long time. The acute phase, you might just get swelling at the site where it bit you, well, not where it bit you, we'll get to that in a second. You might just have swelling at the site of infection, like your eye, and feel like you have a mild flu or something. It's spread by triatomine insects, kissing bugs. Here's a Triatoma gerstecheri. It's got yellow here. It's about the size of a quarter. But it's not spread by the bite. The bug creeps up on you and it bites you, and then it poops on you. And then you accidentally rub that feces into the wound or your eye. And this is why you should not pick on your infections or your scabs or whatever, because you don't know what terrible other thing you're rubbing into that already gross piece of skin on your body. So they add insult to injury. They bite you, they shit on you, they give you Chagas disease. And so the good news is that we only have 7 documented cases in the United States, 4 of them in Texas, but these are all the positive people that showed up at the blood banks that had antibodies for Chagas. So there's something happening here where people are being exposed to it and either are not developing the disease or I don't know, but that's very interesting in my opinion. Oh, okay. Here's another disease, murine typhus. It's also caused by insect poop. Wait, are flea insects? I think they are. Flea feces. Fleas carry this stuff. This is not endemic typhus. You guys may have heard of endemic typhus when you hear about like wartime History Channel stuff or famines and whatnot. And that's spread by lice. This is spread by fleas. It's caused by the bacterium Rickettsia typhi, or typhi. Rickettsias are weird intracellular bacteria that live inside your cells, actually. And you can see that we've had a lot of cases in Texas, but they've grown recently. This is up till 2008. And guess where we've had a lot of them? Oh, look, there's that I-35 corridor. So this is probably somewhere around here. There we go. So my advice for people to avoid getting murine typhus, well, murine typhus gives you a rash, headache, fever, nausea. Like, a lot of these diseases have similar symptoms, is what I'm saying. Remember, you get a fever, if you get a rash, you get a headache, go to the doctor. Oh, okay. I have a list of the symptoms. It's gross. It's really high fever. Maybe I should say that, really high fever, then you go to the doctor. Okay, next slide. Plague. We have plague in the United States too. Who knew that? My roommate knew that. Luckily, we don't have the antibiotic-resistant form of plague that's in Madagascar right now. Okay, this is the same plague that caused the Black Death, okay? Well, it's evolved some since then. But it's also caused by a bacteria, Yersinia pestis, that infects fleas. The reservoirs are things like prairie dogs, wood rats, which is my reservoir for leishmaniasis, other rodents, and this is a map of the western United States, and all the little red crosses represent cases of it. And look over here. What's that state? Texas! Yay, we have plague in Texas. And it's funny. Actually, this isn't funny. You might find it funny. So, gosh, when was it? I can't remember the time. But basically, there was some hunter dude who went hunting somewhere. He had some feed bags in the back of his pickup truck. Some rodents crawled in it. He went back to Highland Park. Who knows where Highland Park is? Rich part of Dallas, really, really rich part of Dallas. That rodent got out and a bunch of the squirrels in Highland Park got infected with plague and started dying. Luckily no one got bitten though. Oh, and the important thing here is that because this is a rodent sort of amplified infection, if you have increased precipitation that leads to more food for rodents, it increases the plague, which is the case with a lot of these diseases. We'll talk about this. Oh, it's not that easy. And then, you know, I feel like I should do a public, the reason I'm telling you about the symptoms is because I feel like I should do a public health service and at least tell you what you should be looking for, you know, in case you get this. Pneumonic plague, fever, headache, cough, hemoptysis, dyspnea, I don't know what those are, chest pain, weakness. And then bubonic plague, headache, malaise, fever, lymph node swelling, Pike's exudation, I know what that is, bleeding, nausea, vomiting, pain, ache. So fever and headaches are bad. High fever and headaches are bad. Okay, next slide. Oh, hantavirus, I don't have a whole lot of time to talk about this. This is another virus spread by rodents. By their feces and urine, you may have heard about it. They have breaks out in the four corner regions of the United States all the time. We have the particular sin nombre form of it, and it has a really high fatality rate of 50%. So that's another bad thing we have. How will climate change affect disease? Or how do climate patterns in general affect disease? Hotter temperatures lead to increased viral replication. Hotter temperatures lead to a lot of increased developmental rates for different parasites and also vectors. They also increase the feeding rates of the vectors. More precipitation means more vectors and reservoirs because you're increasing the food sources for those rodents. You're increasing seeds or vegetation that they feed upon. More rodents mean more vectors have more blood mills. Sorry, more, yeah. And then drought years might make you feel safe, but when the vectors can't find their normal animals to feed on, they change their meal preferences to you guys. Okay, and the final conclusion, always use insect repellent. Well, at least during dawn, dusk, and nighttime, because that's when the sandflies and the malaria mosquitoes are out. Although actually, Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus, the vectors of dengue, they're daytime biting mosquitoes. So yeah, you do have to do it all the time, I guess. Empty standing water, right? Get rid of those mosquitoes. Go look at the water, it's kind of entertaining. Apply flea tick prophylaxis to your pets. I already said this part, but really I should put and daytime. And then go to the doctor if you have a high fever and a weird rash. That's a bad sign. And now I'll take questions.
I was just curious, so on the West Nile infograph that you had, so you had in 2000 started in New York, 2002 started westward, and then I think it was 2004.
That is spread all the way west, yeah.
Yeah, but it seemed to like drop out of the East Coast. Is there a reason why, why it would drop out of the East Coast and then?
Well, so there's also sort of like this wave phenomenon to a lot of pathogens as they spread. So when at the first front of the wave, they're getting into hosts that have never had to deal with them before. So they're immunologically naive hosts. So then the ones that are remaining actually do have some resistance to the parasite. So I don't know for sure, but my guess would be that the ones that have left behind have built up some resistance, so it's not quite as dramatic a spreader anymore in those areas.
Yeah.
It killed a lot of crows when it first came through, and that's how they made the link that it was something new and not St. Louis encephalitis virus.
So, so many. One thing about the wave thing, crystal meth did the same thing. As law enforcement
and so do the parasites associated with it.
So I would imagine that as people sort of cracking down on West Nile, but with that, when crystal law enforcement moved it west and they kept going.
Okay.
But my question is, on your research, somebody yelled out I-35, and the time period you gave, have you eliminated NAFTA as a possible?
Oh.
Seriously, because it comes from south of the border, and I don't mean to be political about this. I'm actually curious.
No. Well, the thing is, though, that it has to get established in the environment. So it's been in South Texas for a while. And so I actually am proposing to do an evolutionary genetic analysis to to see if there's been multiple introductions and to look at how diverse the species is. But one of the main guys who works on leishmaniasis here in Texas, Chad McHugh, he thinks it's always been endemic, and we've just sort of been encroaching upon wildlife habitat. So now we're coming in contact with it more. But I think that it's like way too crazy for there to be tons of cases. I don't know, what's the number? For like 30-something new cases to be in a region where it's never been detected before. But that's also a possibility that humans have helped spread it from other regions. But I have DNA extractions from Mexico and from other regions of Latin America, so I'll compare the genetic similarity of the cases in Texas with these other areas and hopefully figure that out.
Have you heard about cases of drug-resistant malaria, and what do you think this means for infection?
So, have I heard about drug-resistant malaria, and what does this mean? Yes, it's spreading in Southeast Asia. This is a problem. We're seeing this with lots of different types of diseases, especially with bacteria developing antibiotic resistance. It means we need to be choosy about the drugs we use, and we can't just use medicines alone as a safety net. We also need to prevent exposure. And so things like improving housing, adding mosquito netting to beds, changing your activity patterns to not coincide with that of the mosquitoes themselves would be good. There's other interesting ecological measures that can be taken where you put like lots of cows around your house and you hope they bite the cows instead of you. So you sort of like put food out for them so they leave you alone. So I think there just needs to be other methods employed simultaneously. And you can also drain wetlands and things like that.
Do you have any proactive ways and then responsive ways to deal with these if you don't have access to a doctor and you've got the rash, you've got the cough, you're getting headaches, you're like, oh boy. Like, what can
Do you have a bunch of bites or something?
You're like, oh, that's one of those Egyptian ones.
Vote for Obama. No, let's see. There are public health clinics. We have a tuberculosis clinic that's free in Austin. Tuberculosis is another disease spreading around in Austin that's antibiotic resistant. Take days off of work and rest, but make sure you're not resting in a place where other mosquitoes can feed upon you so you transmit it more. It's one of the things about malaria that's cool. It's not cool. Is that it basically like makes you unable to fight off more mosquitoes. So you're like laying there feeling like you're dying, and they just keep taking blood meals from you and transmitting it even further. I don't have to go to the doctor, pay for it somehow.
And I've heard you can just put some fish in like standing water around your house, and that can help.
So mosquito fish do eat the larvae of the mosquitoes, which is good. And you can put in other things for them to eat too, so they get really healthy and big. Just don't make them eat only larvae. Okay, next question.
Which is worse, fleas or mosquitoes right now?
They're both really bad. I've been dumping this pipe out in front of our house that's full with larvae, and my cat's been coming in with like 20 dead fleas on its neck every day because I use Revolution. So we've had a lot of precipitation. So here we go. What does this mean locally for you guys this year? We've had a lot of precipitation. That's good for mosquitoes, and that's really good for fleas. And then once it goes into a drought condition, then they're going to be biting. That'll get rid of the fleas to some extent, and the mosquitoes to some extent. So the weird thing about Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus, they lay their eggs above the water line. So they don't even need water for their eggs to hatch. So they'll keep coming back every year as long as it rains. They're going to be bad this year. If we don't have a hot, dry summer, they're going to be really bad this year.
Okay, what made you choose your particular the protozoa?
Yeah, the protozoan.
Yeah.
It was sort of just fate, you know. I started studying this at the time that it was spreading around Texas. Like I finished my undergraduate degree in 2007, started grad school in 2009, and leishmaniasis had just jumped up really far. I studied dengue for a little bit. I wanted to be an epidemiologist when I was a little kid, and it happened. I studied philosophy in graduate school, and I almost went that way, but decided not to. Undergraduate, I'm sorry. Oh, actually, let me get this guy up top here. Or lady, I can't see very well.
Speaking of high voice.
I'm a man.
follow-up to go back to like the 80s and so was it CDC?
Mhm.
So what's the kind of correlation between the extent of the CDC network and how many cases are reported and actually how many people are taking recordings? I mean, is it like 40% more stations out there or doctors out there with support things, 40% more increases in things? Is the screening better? I mean, is it really spreading or is it just being found better?
Okay, what are you referring to in particular, leishmaniasis?
Any of them.
Any of them? Well, so the malaria screening, well, not screening, but malaria control has been active since 1947. They're really concerned about that reinvading the United States, so they check up on that pretty well. Chagas disease is not a reportable disease, so they don't really pay very much attention to it. Leishmaniasis became reportable in 2007. I mean, it's not a very good way of detecting disease, okay? A lot of this stuff is voluntary. You don't have to report it, but you should report it if you're a dermatologist or a physician that has a patient that has it, but you don't have to. And there's probably a lot of paperwork to fill out about it, so it's probably underreported.
Do you think the US is well prepared to be keeping an eye on this, or could it do better?
We could definitely do better, but that takes money. So, let me get the person over there. I haven't. Hello, April.
Just kind of piggybacking on that last question. So if we think we have a complicated case of these things, do we trust our doctors report them, or do we push them towards reporting, or if we, I kill it on a busy process in my yard. Are you doing something with them?
Oh, should you be doing something with the insects you're killing and whatnot?
How do we collect data better?
Well, if you think you have leishmaniasis, you should of course contact me, because I'm trying to get DNA from different people that have been infected. Let's see, let those dermatologist friends of yours know. There's not very good reporting. I mean, there's some reporting for rabies, like you could send in like dead bats and stuff. No, they don't really collect insects. When I was in the Sohedra Sarkar lab, he's the researcher doing work with Chagas disease right now. He is taking submissions of the triatamine insects and testing them, but it's not very good, which kind of goes with that question. The surveillance is not super great, but it's mainly a cost thing. Okay, I'm making sure there aren't other new people that have a question. Okay. Oh wait, no, this guy's new. Okay.
Actually, I was just going to ask, what do you think of, what are the prospects of Bill Gates' plan to, I think he's trying to eliminate malaria worldwide. Do you think there's any realistic prospect of him stamping out malaria in places like Africa?
Well, so we've gotten rid of smallpox. We keep getting closer to getting rid of, well, sort of getting closer to getting rid of polio. But there's all those Amish that won't get their vaccinations. So it's easy to get rid of a disease. Well, it's not easy, but it's more feasible to get rid of a disease if it's only got a limited number of things that can carry it well. So like with malaria, it's like mosquitoes, humans, and a couple of monkeys. So maybe you could actually get rid of it. Or with leishmaniasis, it's like wood rats and sandflies. But then there's other things like Chagas disease that are found in like every opossum and a bunch of different species, and a bunch of different species of triatamine insects. I mean, it's going to take a lot more money than is probably being dedicated to it right now. Maybe it will eventually get eradicated, but because we have these resistant strains popping up, maybe not. I'm not a malaria expert though, so.
Okay, dengue is my favorite.
Okay.
I was just hoping you might spend a minute talking about some of the cool aspects.
How when you get reinfected with it, you're more likely to die.
How it becomes hemorrhagic if you have the antibodies from the other.
Yeah, it's called, hold on, something sin. Original sin is the term they use. No, it's not. It's not original sin. Sorry, it's antigenic sin. So that's like a real epidemiological term we use for that. So if you can recognize the antigens, your immune system comes back stronger to fight it. And it's funny because the way your immune system reacts to some of these diseases is actually what might kill you, because it overreacts, and that's what they think happened with like the Spanish flu, is that your body released too many cytokines to flood your lungs and kill you. So if your immune system could just tone it down a little bit, maybe you wouldn't die. There's also a couple of different serotypes of dengue. I don't know. Those aren't like species, but they're different strains. And if you've been exposed to one, you don't have immunity to the others. Was that good?
In the case of the second exposure, you can become hemorrhagic.
Right. Yeah, it can be worse the second time you get it, so you do have to be careful. There's no vaccine for dengue. There's a vaccine for yellow fever, so people don't really talk about it anymore. We used to have yellow fever in the United States. Yeah.
How did we eliminate malaria in North America?
So there were a lot of different methods employed to eliminate malaria in North America. Well, not in North America, in the United States, still in Mexico, especially Yucatan Peninsula. Basically, DDT everywhere. You know, it's funny, when they were pushing DDT back in the 40s, the creator of DDT would eat a spoonful of DDT every month to try and show how safe it was. DDT, better housing, water drainage. At the same time, like, things were also improving in the United States as far as like sanitation and whatnot. So that played a big role. There are anti-malarial drugs too. One more question. Who yelled at me?
What happens to the DDT guy?
Oh, I don't know. Someone has a smartphone, look that up and then tell us. I don't know. I just saw that today. I was like doing last minute cramming for this presentation. Okay, thank you.